I just wanted to reflect a bit about my journey also as a French person, landing in this part of the world that was very unfamiliar in terms of where I come from. Okay, so I'm based at Nelson Mandela University. I've been based here for 8 years, and we moved and live here with our family. But originally, I landed in Zimbabwe. That's where I did my PhD almost 15 years ago, and I found myself in that beautiful place. And I found myself there because apparently there was a problem. There is a place called 𝐷𝐿𝐴 that became a national park, and there was too many elephants. And at the same place, there was also lots of people that were hungry or angry. I always confuse, but I think they were both actually. And here it doesn't matter. And so basically, I was invited during my master when I was sitting in my beautiful office in Paris at the National History Museum. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a beautiful place to visit. I was basically took the challenge to do a bioeconomic model. So I was doing modeling in front of my computer to explore the co-viability of these people and these elephants in this place of Zimbabwe. So it was lots of computer things, and it got me very confused. So basically what the approach we took is, like I say, we have so many elephants, they can produce so much meat, and then we have so many people and they need to eat, and we also have tourists and need to see elephants, and we have trophy hunters and they need to find good elephants. And well, that process was actually for me super frustrating. And I was like just asking myself, what are you doing? So I never published that because I never felt comfortable with that kind of research. And I was fortunate enough to, because I developed that without going to Zimbabwe, just reading papers. And then I was fortunate enough to finally go to Zimbabwe 3 years later. And it was 2009. I'm not sure my 𝐶𝐵 colleagues will be very familiar with the situation, but Zimbabwe was really like in a big economic crisis. There was no money, no cash, no economy. The research project is to go to Botswana to fetch fuel, which is about 350 kilometers away from the research station, which I found a bit crazy. So I decided to start my fieldwork journey using 4 donkeys and just moving around on the edge of this protected area. And I think that was a big transformation for me. And it was an amazing opportunity, but it was a transformation not only for me, I think also for the people who were living in these areas, because then I became known as the white girl French that doesn't speak English. I couldn't speak English at the time, so I couldn't speak anything. And I was moving with these donkeys and nobody knew who I was and what I was doing there, even myself. So that gave me a lot of flexibility, actually, not to be knowing what I was doing there. So, but what I found is, like, with the little I could understand, and thanks for lots of people who helped me to understand what people were saying, is that actually I found myself in a place with a lot of polarization. There was a lot of unsaid things that you couldn't say. There was a lot of things that, and it's almost like I had the feeling that I had to become the messenger of what was happening in that area. It was the first, I was also the first student to work outside the protected area. The French people who used to work in that area were mostly focusing inside the protected area, working on elephant dynamics and publishing lots of great papers, and I was kind of the first one leaving the protected area. And I found it very violent. You're from a French Parisian girl, you arrive there and you think you are going to meet these beautiful people and beautiful elephants, and indeed, everybody is beautiful, but you also have this kind of relationship that are not beautiful at all. So as it's been said before, all the villages that I worked on had an history of eviction. And I had the opportunity to meet the elder resident of that area. He's passed on since then. And he told me that Ted Davidson, the one who created 𝐷𝐿𝐴 National Park, they used to call him Malindela, meaning the one who wants to keep. And for me, that story was quite amazing, actually, because also it started, I just went to his homestead, and obviously there's lots of protocol when you get into a homestead in the rural area. And that old man, I think it was about 91 when I met him, I first arrived and he was with his wife, and he has these very, very long nails. And I was very impressed, because I was like, whoa. Okay. And then I sat close to him, and first thing he did is that he picked my ankle, and he just looked at my hair and my legs, and looked at my veins, and looked at my skin, and he just told me it was the first time he could touch a white person. And it was quite impressive, but an amazing experience. And then he told me about the day where he was evicted with his family from the park, and it was also quite a painful story. So then I spent so I completely left the model, which made my supervisors very unhappy. And then I started more like working with the people and trying to understand who they were, their relationship with elephants, and yeah, just trying to understand better the place. And I just realized that, the thing that I was looking at the model only represented a very small portion of what elephant-human relationship is. So it's not only about the economic or the conflict or whatever. It's about these relations. It's about the history. It's about the fear, the danger, the joy, the inspiration, the legacy. So it's a lot richer than what we used to look at when we think about human-wildlife relationship. I look at human-wildlife coexistence also. Obviously, these people are living right on the edge of the park because that's where they were resettled. And they have lots of elephants coming out, raiding their fields. One elephant can just finish all your field in one night. So the risk is huge. And actually, I found out that you had lots of projects from FAO and blah, blah, blah. I was fighting a lot with these institutions at that time, still fighting. And they came up with their human-wildlife toolkit. So if you have problem with elephants, you use this potator and you shoot at the elephants and you will see your life will get better. Not at all. This is bullshit, complete bullshit. And actually what makes these people still coexist with wildlife is just the social cohesion. It's just the solidarity between the farmers who spend 5 months in their field, just sleeping there every night and just guarding their crops. So they are the ones conserving those elephants. Anyway, so we also, because I don't really like the desktop stuff, so I need to be in the field and doing things with people. So we started this very small project. We had a very limited funding from the French embassy, and the people called this project 𝐍𝐞𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐿𝐼. Because I said, but you have problem with elephants, but if you wait for parks to do something for you, you can wait forever, and you're going to die from hunger. So is there anything you can do yourself? Because nobody was helping those communities. And so we try to implement beehives, use chilies, and use different things that I could find in the paper. It worked somehow. And what worked very well is that every year we had more and more people who wanted to participate. And I thought it was wonderful. We reduced by 85% the level of damage on the edge of the park, so it was very, very successful. But then in the last year of my PhD, I had to go back to France for writing, and then the project collapsed. And I think that was the worst experience of my life, because I really thought this project was beautiful. I love the people I was working with. I worked with the student. The student took over. I took to my traditional leaders. They were kind of, overlooking the project. I thought I did everything perfectly. I left, and it collapsed. And so, yeah, that was a big challenge for me. So when I was in France, I was trying to make sense of all of that. So I worked on elephant dynamic processes. I worked on service and disservices. I looked at the relationship between land use and service and disservices, how management strategy actually influences all the relationship between things that seem to me very, very important in that system. And often in social ecological system framework, SES people love frameworks, as you said. You don't have these things around values, attitudes. So now well-being came up in the IPBES framework, but values and attitude, nobody really bothered about that. And for me, it was kind of fundamental, because the whole thing speak about governance. And I was an ecologist by training. I didn't know anything about governance. So then I got the opportunity, thanks to Bob Scholes, actually, and Christopher Bricious, to work for the MAGIC project and come here That's what brought me here in South Africa. And learn more about governance and socio-ecological system study, dig deep into the theory, try to make sense of all the experience I had in Zimbabwe. And just after that, we got some funding in Zimbabwe from the EU for a project called Promoting Sustainable Livelihood in Transfrontier Conservation Areas. It was coordinated by a French institution called 𝐵𝐶𝐻, and they asked me to kind of co-coordinate there were 4 areas, and they asked me to coordinate the 𝐵𝐴 aspect of that project because of my relationship with the people there. And this project, we use the future quite a lot. And we investigate the drivers. So we gathered knowledge brokers for 5 days. We had quite a long workshop. And we asked people, what do you think are the drivers of sustainable livelihoods in this transfrontier conservation area? Because 𝐵𝐴 is part of 𝐶𝐬𝐵, sorry, I forgot to mention. And in 𝐵𝐴, we had issues around governance and communities coming up, you know. You can't sustain livelihood in conservation areas if you have a governance system and a community that is not functioning. We have issues around land use regulation and allocation. We've heard that many times. Issues around natural resource, state of natural resource, more related to ecosystem services, actually. Issues around farming systems, and very importantly, culture, and especially the importance of local culture. Say, you can't really promote sustainable livelihood if you completely deny local culture. And actually, the kind of drivers we found in 𝐵𝐴 were very similar to those found in the 3 other sites. And then, so Fraser was the actually facilitator of that project. He was chosen by the community to facilitate the project locally. And Fraser and Tim went to the village now, deep into the communal area. We were working in 1 ward to engage now with the women, the youth, and the elders about their perception of sustainable livelihood. So we were no longer working with the chief, the expert, the knowledge brokers, but now really going to the community. And people mention huge issues around water. So they say, if you want to promote sustainable livelihoods, we need water, we need borehole, we need solar pumps, because people are pumping, women are pumping water like that. It's exhausting. We need dams for our livestock. We also need small dams so that we don't have to travel long distance. They also mentioned they need capacity building and skills training. They know they have issue to maintain cattle in these systems because of shortage of grazing. So they say we want to try to develop small ruminants farming also to generate some income. And maybe develop local markets and community-based tourism, because in Zimbabwe, it's not like South Africa. There's very little benefit from conservation to the community. But most importantly, they say nothing will be sustainable if we don't nurture a culture of respect in our community. And so they said, we need that. And then one of the village heads said, oh, the problem is that there's no more culture of respect in our community. And I was like, okay, thank you. So, with my background and whatever, nurturing a culture of respect in the community. But yeah, I thought I worked with the chief and the land. So this is not working. There's lots of issues around leadership. And then the COVID-19 hit. And I think I will have to shorten a lot my talk. I'm sorry about that, but at least you will get what I managed to do today. And so we couldn't organize workshop meetings, anything. And then Freder and some of his friends took some time to reflect about what is meant by the community when they talk about nurturing a culture of respect. And I apologize because this is fully in English, but in the report that they wrote, and you can ask Freder for that report, there are some elements in local language as well. So they say nurturing a culture of respect is finding means to protect, care for, nourish, support, and develop the social behaviors, customs, norms, laws, beliefs, habits, attitudes, knowledge, and perceptions that can ensure maximum moral consideration and respect for the biosphere and from all. So conservation is far more complex than the way the world tend to conceptualize it. Respect starts with self-identity, then an appreciation of the phenomenon of the study. Taboos, proverbs, poetry, music, dance, game, folk takes are used to teach love, gratitude, respect, praise, retribution, and health, among other attributes that encourage the spirit of Bunu. Sorry, my pronunciation is not terrible, I'm trying. Humanity when relating to living and non-living natural entities. While indigenous knowledge systems are quite useful for the biosphere, they are threatened by a number of factors such as technology and science. We are threatening important knowledge systems. Globalization, global warming, modernization, religion, and forms of communication coming from the more civilized part of the world, among others. So this is not a scientific presentation. I'm not presenting data. I have the privilege to be able to present some of the wisdom that is coming from the community that we work with. So then, we had this discussion, and I say, okay, so what am I doing here? Like these people are so beautiful. They get everything. So what is my role here? Maybe some of you are familiar with this framework of leverage points that was introduced by Donella Meadows at the end of the 90s, where they say a lot of institutions focus on interventions that have very shallow leverage for systemic change, like the material and the processes. But the deeper leverage points have a great potential, but are under research that are the intent. We need to change our mindsets. We need to change our paradigm. And then, based on this redefine the way we want to operate. So the next step was through Prosuli. People mentioned about this landscape degradation that also Benji mentioned about. People have no grazing, the landscape are eroding. So here again, we deeply listen to the people, choose a site, and we partner with 2 local Zimbabwean organizations to try to regenerate the landscape. And just very short, because this was very inspiring, I'm over time already. So Julius Pitti, who comes from Chimanimani, so on the other side of Zimbabwe, has traveled all the way to teach these women how to harvest water. And we had a group of 30 women just digging those huge swells to harvest water. And this is enormous labor, and people were doing it for free because they wanted to regenerate the landscape. And while they were digging, they had lots of community people saying, you are doing whatever the whites is asking for you to do, this is never going to work. So they were like really not really supported by their community. But to the surprise of everyone, the next year, the spring that stopped flowing for 15 years started to flow again. So just by bringing people together, having faith and nurturing this kind of community spirit, it's really the community spirit, I think, that was of the drivers of that source of water coming again. And that changed completely now, the spirit of the community. So you bring some form of community spirit and you impact on the spirit of the community. And I think that was one of the great leverage. So we have other projects ongoing in 𝐷𝐿𝐴, now very more like collaborative projects. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Trust, we've discussed that many, many times. I'm happy to share my presentation with anyone who wants. But the new journey I'm going to now, it's more exploring this kind of regenerative processes. We are not restoring the landscape, actually. We are regenerating the system. Not we, actually, they are. So I'm not doing much, so I'm trying to find money for that. But if you want to go into a regenerative journey, the first line of work is to develop yourself. So there is no change that any one of us can make if we don't work on ourselves and nurture our own spirit. So that's the work of the designer. And then the second line of work is growing the capability of the community and the team, I'm so proud of all the students that we have today at NMU, Fraser, Benji, Nelly. We also had some chance to interact, and Shashi. They're amazing people, and this is how you build strengths in the system. And improving, and then the second line of work is improving the health and the value of the system, but you can't do that if you haven't done the 2 others. Thank you so much.